When Jesus walked the hills of Galilee, he quietly set in motion one of the greatest revolutions of all time, the spiritual emancipation of women. During his third preaching tour, he did something no rabbi of his day would dare. From the Bethsaida camp, he summoned 10 women, caregivers, helpers, quiet servants, and commissioned them openly as teachers of the kingdom. This was no small gesture. It was, as the Urantia Book calls it, an emancipation proclamation, declaring once and for all that women stand as equals with men in the eyes of God. The apostles were stunned, the crowds were scandalized, but for the women of Galilee, this moment was the breaking of chains. They organized themselves. Susanna, daughter of a synagogue leader, was chosen as chief. Joanna, the wife of Chusa, Herod's steward, became treasurer. They became a core, not servants in the background, but leaders, healers, and teachers. Soon, 2 more joined, Mary Magdalene, who would become their most passionate voice, and Rebecca, daughter of Joseph of Arimathea. Together, they became the 12 women evangelists. While the apostles preached in synagogues and town squares, the women entered places the men could never go: the homes, the kitchens, the secret gatherings of women. They visited the sick, comforted the grieving, and even carried the gospel into places of shame and despair. In Magdala, Martha and Rachel brought the message of hope to the so-called fallen women, and it was there that Mary Magdalene was won to the kingdom. They were not limited to words. Their ministry was hands-on, nursing the sick, teaching children, counseling families, and conducting worship when no synagogue would open its doors. In one memorable Sabbath at Tiberias, Joanna read aloud the stories of Miriam, Deborah, and Esther, reminding the gathered women of their noble spiritual heritage. Jesus sent them out 2 by 2, just as he did with the men. They were pioneers of a new order, disciples who carried both truth and tenderness into the hidden corners of society. By the end of the Galilean ministry, their numbers multiplied. The original 12 trained 50 more in home visitation and healthcare. Soon, there were 62 women working as a united body. Later still, a second division formed, this time including the apostles' wives. Perpetua, Peter's wife, was entrusted with leadership under Abner and joined by the wives of Philip and Matthew, along with the mother of James and John. When danger closed in, their loyalty never wavered. In Jerusalem, as Jesus gave his final counsel, he spoke directly to them, thanking them for their faithfulness. And when the night of trial came, the men scattered, but the women remained. Not one betrayed him, not one denied him. They stood by the cross, unwavering, until the very end. And when the stone was rolled away, it was not Peter or John who first proclaimed the risen Lord. It was Mary Magdalene, the chief voice of the women's corps, who rushed to the apostles with the cry that still rings through the ages, "I have seen the Lord." Here are some of the women who made this movement possible. Susanna, daughter of the former Chazan of the Nazareth synagogue. Elected chief of the corps, she served as the first point of contact for women in the group. Joanna, wife of Chusa, steward of Herod Antipas. Elected treasurer, she later led worship services such as the Sabbath gathering in Tiberias. Elizabeth, from a wealthy Jewish family of Tiberias and Sepphoris. The text gives no further detail, but her presence shows the corps reached across social classes. Martha, eldest sister of Andrew and Peter. She left her home to serve and helped win Mary Magdalene for the kingdom. Rachel, sister-in-law of Jude, Jesus' brother. She ministered beside Martha in Magdala. Nasanta, daughter of Elman, a Syrian physician. She likely carried medical training into the corps. Milcha, cousin of the apostle Thomas. Ruth, eldest daughter of Matthew Levi, the tax collector turned apostle. Celta, daughter of a Roman centurion, a Gentile background, hinting at the gospel's outreach beyond Jewish circles. Agamon, a widow of Damascus. Mary Magdalene, won for the kingdom by Martha and Rachel at Magdala, she became one of the 12 women and their most effective teacher. Later, she was the first to proclaim the risen Lord. Rebecca, daughter of Joseph of Arimathea. Converted at Jotapata, she joined with Mary Magdalene and traveled with her in ministry. Perpetua, wife of Simon Peter. When the corps expanded into a second division, Abner appointed her as its leader. After Pentecost, she traveled and ministered with Peter until his martyrdom in Rome, where she herself was thrown to wild beasts in the arena. The wives of Philip and Matthew, and the mother of James and John. Though unnamed, they were members of the expanded corps, serving alongside their husbands. Even though Mary, the mother of Jesus, stood as a central figure in the movement, the Urantia Book does not list her in this corps, keeping her role distinct. The Urantia Book tells us that after Pentecost, the women's corps faded into history, absorbed into the early church as deaconesses and helpers, yet their spirit did not fade. Figures like Perpetua carried the torch, serving beside Peter until her martyrdom in Rome. Their story is more than history. It is a revelation of Jesus' vision for humanity, a vision where no person is spiritually inferior, where men and women labor side by side, where service, compassion, and truth flow freely from every willing soul. The women's corps remind us that the kingdom is not built on privilege or power, but on faith, courage, and love in action. They were the first evangelists of equality and the first heralds of resurrection hope.